Hello, everybody. How are you doing this fine? Whatever the day of the week it is, whenever you watch this. I did want to give you an update about the video, the documentary that I'm working on pertaining to the line drama, is what they're calling it now. But I mean, I would call it abuse and harassment and lying. But look, listen, the documentary is coming out soon. Okay. So I did have a little bit of an update that I wanted to provide now before the full documentary comes out. And it is Prem's first hand account of the incident. Some of you may have heard me state earlier and previously that I had a rightful spot in the line because specifically Prem, my fiance, was standing in the spot. And then when I got there, he gave me his spot. He had a rightful spot. He also then paid to move further up in the spot, which was not the way that I would do things, certainly not the way I would set a line up. Okay, so that ain't the way I would do things. But this was the last day of trial after they had been doing it this way for 2 months. They had been doing it this way for 8 weeks. Okay. So I don't like the system. I think they need to have a new system. I think they need to let more people from the public into the courtroom. I mean, there's a lot of criticisms I have with this system. However, when in Rome or when in New York, you gotta do what the New Yorkers do. Line sitters have been a part of the culture in New York for a long time. Again, not my favorite thing. Not my favorite thing, but I didn't make this system. When you go to New York, you got to do what the New Yorkers do, or you're not going to get in the courtroom. A large part of the incidents that occurred happened when I wasn't there because Prem was there. So instead of taking my word for it, why would you need to take secondhand information? You can take it directly from the person who was there during the times that I wasn't even yet there. And in particular, why Prem decided that he wanted to sit and make this story is because, and you'll hear it from him, is because he saw some lies and some behaviors that were being based on race whenever it really actually didn't actually have anything at all whatsoever to do with race. Again, don't take my word for it. I will now leave the floor to him so that he can tell you his observations.
Hey guys, my name is Prem. I am BJ's fiance. I'm going to be talking about the final day of the P. Diddy trial and the events that went on at the trial. I was not planning on talking about the trial or anything that went on because I haven't covered it at all. But in the last few days, I've seen videos come out that have made the events of that trial about racism. As a person who's had to deal with racism throughout their life and have had a family member who was nearly beaten to death due to racism, this topic is very important to me. When people take the topic of racism and start applying it in circumstances where there was no racism, it dilutes the conversation and takes away from the conversation. For that reason, I will be telling you what went on that day, and then you guys decide, based on your own opinions, what you think. Was it really racism or other things at play? So this whole story begins on Tuesday when BJ and I were sitting in the overflow room at the P. Diddy trial talking to a content creator. I asked that content creator how the line worked, how to get into the main courtroom, and just all the details surrounding it. That content creator told me that you have to get there in the morning, that you have to sometimes pay for a line sitter, and that there is a lot of drama. A lot of people have cliques there that will try to get their friends in, and it takes a lot to get in. He told me that you might have to pay anywhere from $100 to $1,500 to a line sitter, depending on what is going on. So at end of the night, I decided I would go to the court the following morning so I could stand in line and BJ could have a spot in the courtroom. I woke up at 3 a.m. and instead of meditating, I got ready and went to the courthouse. When I arrived at the courthouse, I saw there was a few people that were unhoused and a few Diddy supporters sitting in line. Those people told me that Diamond was managing a list for all the people that were in line. I went up to Diamond, I gave her my name. I saw that Diamond added my name to the list, but before she added my name, she added a few other people. Instead of fighting with her or arguing with her, wanting to guarantee a spot for BJ in the courtroom, I decided to approach one of the people that was ahead of all these people and ask him if I could buy his spot to move up in the line. That person sold me their spot for $400. I took that person's spot in line and Diamond was made aware. While I sat there, I had great discussions with everyone in line. I even told some of the people that I was saving this spot for my fiance, who was a YouTuber and created videos on the Diddy trial. Around 6 o'clock, I called up BJ and I told her I had secured a spot in the line and that we had a guaranteed spot to get into the courthouse and that she should get there by 7 o'clock because that's what the people in the line told me. Around 7 o'clock, people started arriving at the courthouse. All of a sudden there started to be about commotion about who was going to be in line, who was there, who was not there. There was this one lady in blue jean jacket that showed up, and that was Diamond's friend. Diamond and her concocted a plan that the line sitter that I paid the money to, she had paid money to him the day before, and that was her spot. Instead of arguing and fighting with these people, I stood in line and waited for the marshals to open this line up. Not being in this line the previous days, I didn't know, but when the marshals opened up the line, Diamond and all her friends bunched up into the front and cut me in line. So then we moved to the second part of the line. In that second part of the line, instead of being in the first 11, I was pushed to number 12. At that point, BJ and I were there, and BJ asked me, Prem, you paid for that spot in that line. Why are we back here? Why are you not up there? As I informed her, hey, those people play the system. They cut in front of me. I'm not going to argue with them. If we're number 12, we're number 12. And I truly believe in God. And if God wants us to be in the overflow room, we will end up in the overflow room. And if there's a miracle and God wants you to be in the main room, you will end up in the main room. While we're standing in the line outside, now I see Diamond going up to all her friends and telling them not to let me in front, to not let me move up, that they had secured their spots. I even told the person who cut me that, hey, I'm not going to fight with you. I'm not going to argue with you. You did cut me in line, but that's okay. So we waited in that line, and then the doors opened. When the doors opened, we all went through security. While we were going through security, one of the people, I think his name was Michael, he was held up and we didn't even know, but when we got to the third line, BJ was put on the number 11 spot. Well, this is where all the drama starts. When he shows up, they all start screaming, they start yelling, and they start berating BJ because they think he should have that number 11 spot. While every single one of them knew that their friends cut me in line, while every single one of them knew that I had paid someone money to be in the first 11 people, they were still screaming at BJ that she should get out of the line. They were nasty, they were disgusting. And as I told BJ, hey, the Lord put you on the number 11 spot, you're in the number 11 spot. All these people cut me in line, we didn't fight, we didn't argue, we let them cut. These people were yelling at BJ, she didn't belong, she was privileged, she was a Karen, she should get out of line. They were insulting her, they were berating her. All these people were also yelling at the marshals, telling them that they should kick BJ out of the line, while they all knew that I had paid a line sitter money for a spot in the top 11, that I was there before a lot of those people that were in the top 11. But instead of standing up for me, they wanted to only stand up for their friend. At one point, Diamond tells BJ, there's no way you're going to get into court. And BJ literally said, bitch, please. This went on for a few minutes, and these people would not stop yelling at BJ. At that point, BJ called over a marshal and asked him, can you please tell these people to stop speaking to me? These people were so nasty and so vile. And finally, the marshals came over and said, hey, you know what? We're going to see if we can get 12 people into the court, and we're going to try to get that person into court. At that point, that line ended. All 12 people were able to go up. I left. Once Diddy was found guilty, I got back to the entrance of the court. BJ had asked me to be there because she was scared. She did not know what these people would do. They were so aggressive in the morning. She was really scared for her safety. So I got to the courthouse and I waited right out in the front door. As soon as BJ walked out the front door, I had my camera on. She recorded a 3-minute video and she said she just wanted to leave and go back to the hotel room. She was still shook up from the morning and she was fearing for her safety and she didn't know what anyone was going to do. So instead of making a video, instead of going live, we decided to go back to the hotel. At the hotel, we had a conversation, and the conversation was, hey, you already got a spot in the main courtroom. You went through so much effort and so much abuse. You should be there for the bail hearing. So we decided to go back to the courtroom, and I told her that I would stay with her the entire time until she went to the main courtroom. Once we got to the courtroom, instead of the bail hearing starting at 1, it kept on getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So we had to go sit in the cafeteria. While in the cafeteria, we met a few new people, and those people we had conversations with. Again, majority of them were Diddy supporters, majority of them were happy that Diddy won, and it was all cool, no problems, no issues. And then we started to move to the terrace. BJ and I were sitting at the terrace, then a few other people decided to join us on our table and have a conversation. While talking to those people, Cassie's lawyer filed some documents, and a person brought those documents over to our table, and this kid named Demir started reading those documents. Once we read those documents, BJ said, guys, I think, based on Cassie's letter, if this is true, I don't think he'll get bail today, but we have to wait for the prosecutor's letter, we have to wait for the defense's letter, and that'll decide what really happens. After a little bit more time, another letter came out. This was the prosecutor's letter. Those people, again, brought the prosecutor's letter to our table. Amir, a man of color, started to read that letter. While we were reading that letter, there came a section where the prosecutors were talking about Diddy's acts of violence and everything else that went on the case, and how the judge should take that into account when deciding if he should get bail or not. At that point, some of the Diddy supporters started screaming, no, he's been not found guilty of those. That can't be taken into account. That can't be taken into account. He hasn't been found guilty. BJ said, guys, even though the jury might have found him not guilty, the judge can take evidence that was put into the trial and take that into account and to decide if he's going to grant him bail or not. At that moment, that person became mad and upset and started screaming, no, he's been not found guilty. He's been not found guilty. That can't be taken against him. BJ literally turned around and said, I am not trying to argue this. This is what the law is. This person got so furious and mad that they went and snatched the papers out of the person's hand who was reading him. At that point, BJ said, you're having him read them to you anyway, so go ahead, take them. It doesn't matter. This person decided to yell, you're not part of our community. You're not part of our community. This is only for our community. At that point, I assumed they were talking about the pro-Diddy community. But then that person went to go on to say, this isn't the 1930s. This isn't the 1930s. Trying to imply that BJ was saying that someone of color could not be reading those documents. That was just ridiculous, because the person who was actually reading the documents was a person of color. BJ was not even reading the documents. It was a person of color who was reading the documents. At that point, the person whose hand the papers were snatched out of decided to get up and walk away. BJ and I also decided to get up and remove ourselves from that situation. Both the events in the morning and during lunchtime had nothing to do with racism. The event in the morning was P. Diddy supporters wanting their friends to be in court. And when BJ got one of the spots rightfully, which I had paid for, which I had stood in line before those people for, they were mad and upset. And they were going to do whatever it took, yelling, screaming, name calling to get her out of the line. And it did not work. And then in the afternoon at the cafeteria, it was again, P. Diddy supporters were not happy with the analysis of what the legal documents said. And you know what? When we got into court, the judge decided on those documents the way BJ had interpreted them. Those people started to make this a race issue again, while a person who was reading the documents was of color. If you want to talk about racism, in my opinion, this person, Sam, was saying that BJ was talking in a black accent, which I think is pretty racist. BJ's southern accent was made into a black accent. I know a lot of black people, and they have a lot of different accents. To say that a southern accent is a black accent is pretty sad and racist. Guys, this is truly what happened. Now you get to decide, was it racism or was it P. Diddy supporters mad and upset that they weren't getting their way?